This is session 19. Terraform remote state storage and state locking with AWS S3 and DynamoDB. What does it mean? It means that our state file will go to S3 bucket and table will be created in DynamoDB. So understand Terraform buckets, understand about remote state storage and its advantages. This state is stored by default in the local file, as we already know. The file name is terraform.tfstate. But it can also be stored remotely. The purpose is that when you are working in team, it is a recommended thing, which will work better if we have team environment. Understand about the state locking and its advantages. Create DynamoDB table and implement state locking by enabling the same in Terraform backend configuration. Our focus is the terraform.tfstate file. So we have an EC2 instance Terraform configuration files. This is our desired state, the current state, and the tfstate file have the details. So Terraform Remote State Storage. What is Terraform backend? The backends are responsible for storing state and providing an API for state locking, like Terraform State Storage, that is terraform.tfstate, and then Terraform State Locking through the DynamoDB. So state lock file, when we create any resource, like admin create a resource, a tfstate file is maintained locally, but team will not be able to manage it. Your team cannot access this file. To allow team to access this terraform.tfstate file, we need to store it in some version control system or remote location. So multiple team members cannot update the infrastructure as they don't have access to the state file. This means that we need to store the state file in a shared location. So this is what the purpose is, this is what the advantage is. So remote state file, using Terraform backend concept, we can use AWS S3 as the shared storage for state files, which means admin is provisioning resources, the state file is stored into S3 bucket, admin 2 is using that, pulling the file, admin 3 is pulling the file. So we can manage the state and by sharing them with the team members. So if two team members are running Terraform at the same time, you may run into a race condition as multiple Terraform processes make concurrent update to the state file, leading to conflict, data loss, and the state file corruption. So therefore we need to lock it. When X user is working, when admin 1 is working, the file should be locked. It should not be allowed. When user 2 is working, the file should be locked and the other user should not be allowed. So we need to use Terraform remote state file with state locking. We have 3 admins, admin 1, admin 2, admin 3. Not all backend support state locking. Is AWS S3 support state locking. State locking happens automatically in all operations that could write state. If the state locking fails, the Terraform will not continue. You can disable state locking for most commands with -lock file flag, but it's not recommended. If acquiring the lock is taking longer than expected, Terraform will output a status message. If the Terraform doesn't output a message, the state locking is still occurring if your backend supports it. Terraform has a force unlock command to manually unlock the state if locking fails. So this is what we are going to understand in this file, Terraform remote state file with state locking. These are the files. So in our S3 bucket, we need to create this bucket and the key and the region where we are creating it. We need to have this table name and file name. We'll talk about these files. So create a bucket. I already created the bucket. Bucket should be like enable default, versioning is default, reset all to default. Click on create bucket. Folder name, we created this. Another folder name inside the dev, we have created this. Bucket configuration, we have this URL. As I said, this is where that key file will be stored, the location, the name of the file that will be created. For state locking, this is where the DynamoDB table will be created for locking. Terraform state locking introduction. So add state locking feature using DynamoDB table. So table name, partition key, table settings, and these are the commands we will be working with. Let's see the files now. So this is our file, project 1 AWS VPC remote file. Let's look at the file. cat-9 generic variable, local variable, VPC variables. I'll not talk about that, and I'll talk about this VPC variables and VPC module. Let's see some files. C1. This file itself has the detailed stream. Terraform block where we specify the version, and this is the backend part we are talking about. Adding backend as S3 for remote state storage. Bucket S3, bucket name, the key, and the region where it will be stored, and the state locking file. This is what I was talking about. That's the only thing, nothing else. For remote storage, you just need to add this part. Now let's see. Terraform init. See, now you can see successfully configured the backend S3. Terraform will automatically use this backend unless the backend configuration changes. This is what happened when you add your S3 bucket here. Terraform plan. Acquiring the lock. This is it's not able to acquire the lock. We can right now say lock equal to false, because as of now I can use this part. So lock equal to false. For the purpose of training, I can simply pass this lock equal to false, and now I'll apply this. So this will approve, this will create the resources. I will see that bucket S3 file here, the terraform.tf state. Right now it is not there. I am expecting the file to be available here, because once the resources are created, it will create a terraform.tf state file as well, and the file will be into S3 bucket. Done. Now I should see the terraform.tf state file here. Yes, this is the file. So that is the purpose of storing terraform.tf state file remotely. And that's complete our this Terraform on AWS. Let me destroy these resources. Terraform destroy. That's all for this session. Thank you very much, team.